Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rachak Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. If anyone on the comment board can let me know if they could hear. Just want to make sure everything is good. And I have the headset plugged in. It's pretty windy out here, but it feels good. So, just loud and clear. Okay, the water. Shalom to the sincere Akim and the sincere Akwath out there. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachak Kodash. Welcome to another lesson, another live lesson. The name of this one is From Lockdowns to Lockouts. And this lesson, the title came to an inspiration from a video or some information a brother sent me. And the thought that came to mind was, the stuff he sent me was, I told him, I said, yeah, it's going from lockdowns to lockouts. And then as soon as I wrote it, I thought about it. So that's a good name for a title for a lesson. So here we are. But before I get started, I was a brother sent me a video of a testimony of a dream that a brother had, and the dream that he had, I was in his dream, and I hit the video and was watching it, but I was gonna listen to a little bit of music on the way here, and for some reason when I hit that play button, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop the video to listen to music, and the brother gave a testimony. I believe the name of his channel is called Prophets of Babylon, either Prophet of Babylon or Prophets of Babylon. And I was watching or listening to his video, and I honestly, it brought tears to my eyes, because, it was kind of an emotional. I mean, the brother didn't get emotional, but what he was saying within the dream got, kind of emotional. So I kind of shed a couple of tears, because it's like, wow, so I'm just like in that state of mind right now, just thinking about that, so if you get a chance, check it out. I mean, if I remember, Lord's will, I'll put the link in the description box. But pretty much hard times are coming. And as we've been saying, these devils are putting a stranglehold on the world, and the grip is getting tighter and tighter. And that's why this lesson is called From Lockdowns to Lockouts. And some of you brothers may remember probably a couple of years ago or so, there was a video of a Moabite dude that I think he spoke out against the government, or he spoke out about some, beef, I guess, that he had with the government or something along those lines. And pretty much through the credit system that he had, they locked him out of everything. I believe he couldn't work. He couldn't take any public transportation. He pretty much was locked out of the whole system, for a certain period of time, because he wouldn't comply, or either he wouldn't comply or he was talking crap, against the government and their agency. And that's pretty much what they're doing, is they're creating a world system. It's already in place. They're just tightening up the screws. And anyone that speaks against it will be locked out. So what I did, and this is being done through mandates. That's why the scriptures say, woe to him that prescribe, unlawful decrees or something along that line, which we're going to get. But what I want to get first, before we get into that, is I want to get a couple of definitions that came to mind. One of them being mandates, or mandate, which is what they're doing with this legislation. And this is why they're saying that, oh no, the government isn't going to be the one that forces you to take this jab. It's going to be the businesses. But really, when you look at it, which businesses? It's the big uh, box store, the big businesses, not these little mom and pop businesses. And these big corporations, these big businesses are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the international banking families of this world, which are the ones that are pushing this agenda. So pretty much it's a rigged game, as they say. So when we look up the word mandate is a document giving an official instruction or command. And when you go down to verbs, number 2, the word mandate is make mandatory. Number 3 is assign authority to. And that's what they're doing with this legislation. They're actually putting in place legal documents that will be enforced once people do not comply with the things that they're making mandatory. So what I did, I also looked up the word lockdown, because the name of the title is From Lockdowns to Lockouts. So remember, back in 2020, it was what? Lockdown. Now we come to the point where if you don't comply with these mandates, you're going to be locked out. And the word lockdown means the act of confining prisoners to their cells, usually to regain control during a riot. So these things that are happening so that the people can get so frustrated and so desperate that they can go into an anarchy type state, to where they start acting a fool out here and riot against the government, against each other, so that gives the international banking families, through the government and through their different agencies, the excuse to come in and bash people upside the head, to enforce these mandates that they're pushing. So through the lockdown, which is what started the whole thing, they were able to keep people out of the way, set up the infrastructure, set up all the wires and everything that they needed, to set up this whole 5G system that they're pushing to be able to help their their actual agenda go forward. Because one thing to understand is everything has to be digital in order for them to gain total control. So much so that at the push of a button, they can X anyone out of this system. You see? So the lockdowns were set up for that, to get people afraid, to get people to take this jab, which will lead to the MOTB, which is the chip, And now that things are moving forward, because these sheep have been complying and they're getting back to that mask, that face diaper, they're getting back into that face diaper, putting the face diaper on, and then you don't have one, they look at you crazy. Now it's getting to the point where these mandates are getting stricter and stricter. You heard Biden, Sleepy Joe, Sleepy Creepy Joe, make mandatory for the federal employees and any employer out there that has over 100 employees, that they have to have, they have to be jabbed up, or they have to get either weekly or daily tests, or whatever the case was. So this is causing problems, because now they're military men. They're like 12 of the most expensive top pilots for the U.S. Navy that are pretty much walking out, and other top men of the Navy walking out because of these mandates. So this is going to cause a lot of friction, So that's what this is going to cause, is the lockdowns and the mandates are going to cause lockouts. And the word lockout is a management action resisting employees' demands. Employees are barred from entering the workplace until they agree to the terms. See? And there's a whole bunch of synonyms. I'll read that again. Lockout. Management action resisting employees' demands, because the employees don't want this thing. But the employers, being pushed into the corner by these mandates, have to comply. It says employees are barred from entering the workplace until they agree to terms. So you see where it comes in from lockdowns to lockouts, because this whole global grid system that's going to be online is going to be the new way, the new normal, so to speak, of how things are going to be pushed and things are going to be done for the future. Now, I was watching this movie called Level 16, which was pretty much a building where they had young women, little girls, and pretty much they will train them to each level, cleanliness, taking their vitamins, this, that, and the other. And pretty much what they were doing is grooming them to take these pills, because they were eventually, after they were molded and shaped, whatever the case was, they would be sold. And that brought to mind the movie Handmaid's Tale. So everything is being geared towards strict and total obedience so that everyone can become a total slave to these devils. And the way the lockdown is going to take place is going to be based off of this credit system that's going to lock everyone out. And we know that the average person out there has bad credit because of the debt-bearing notes that we carry, which are FRNs, which people call dollars. Dollars is not a form of money. Dollar is an expression or a weight of money, not money itself. It's just like if you go to a store, like G. Edward Griffin put it, you go to a store, well, he didn't say it in this manner, but I'm putting it in a different way. You go to a store and you tell the cashier, I want a quart. They're going to say, a quart of what? You have to be specific. You want a quart of water, you want a quart of juice, you want a quart of milk. So what is a quart? A quart is a measurement. So what is a dollar? A dollar is a measurement of what? Of gold or silver, because according to the Constitution, it says that neither gold or silver coins can be tendered as money. And then they'll be able to be expressed in dollars, because dollar is a measurement of this particular precious metal, these precious metals. All right, Satan acting up. All right, so the first precept I'm going to go to, and I'm going in the spirit, I really don't have any precepts. I just had this one scripture that I wanted to go to in the book of Proverbs 22 and 7. And let me know if it's getting too crazy out here, then I might have to move it to another location, because I just want to make sure that you could hear everything, and the wind is not being a factor before I read the scripture. Okay, cool. Said it's fine. All right. So Proverbs 22 and 7. It says, the rich ruleth over the poor. So who are the rich? It's not talking about, your so-called, people that have hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars, because those are, like as Elder Pastor said, those are welfare cases. It's really speaking about these trillionaires, the international banking families, the banking cartel, the banksters, and all other plethora of things that they're called. It says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So what is a borrower? A borrower is someone that borrows. And why would somebody borrow? Because they're in a position to where they can't sustain themselves, because the living or the cost of living for them is far above the means of what they make. So what that causes someone to have to borrow money. And when you borrow money, you're in debt. Now, when you go to the law, there was a law to where if your brother would come to you and borrow money from you, you were not supposed to lend to him upon usury. Now, what is usury? Usury is interest. So somebody lends you $100, and then they may charge you a 10 to 12%, on top of that. And here it is, you're borrowing the $100 because you're in the hole already, and they're making it harder for you because they're putting you deeper in the hole. So that's what usury or interest is, So these debt-bearing notes, which are not backed by anything, because they're supposed to be backed by silver and gold, nothing else, cause people to be further in debt. It's just like taking one credit card and maxing it, and then taking another credit card to pay that credit card off. Now, you may be able to juggle that for a while, but after a while, you're going to have to pay the piper. And that's why it says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And who is the lender? The international banking families, because we as a people, we really don't have, you have Jakes out there that have the ability to lend money, but as a whole, we as a nation, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, we do not have the ability to lend money like that. When we go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and the, 43rd verse, it says, the stranger that is within thee, see, and this is where it's important to discern between when it's speaking about a stranger, speaking about an Israelite foreigner, or speaking about an actual nation. This particular one here is speaking about an actual nation. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And we as a people have come down very low. Some of our people are struggling from day to day. We live paycheck to paycheck. Brothers live paycheck to paycheck. Sisters live paycheck to paycheck. They may have a little something stashed away, for just in case. But for the most part, it's like a paycheck to paycheck thing. It says, he shall lend to thee, see, and thou shalt not lend to him. So in other words, these devils that are in power, which are the strangers, the curse was that they will lend to us and we will not be able to lend to them. He shall be the head and thou shalt be the tail. So if somebody lends something to you and you can't pay them back, what happens when they call it a debt? This is why the 7th year of Jubilee and the 50-year the year of release. Every 7 years is a year of release, and the 50th year was a year of Jubilee, I believe it's called. Jubilee. That's why those were implemented, because sometimes a person would fall into hard times and not be able to pay. So there was, every 7 years, their debt would be erased. And then every 50 years, their debt would be erased. And sometimes people would be so in debt, when you read the scriptures, that they would give their substance. They may give their cattle, or they may give their land, or they may give their homes as collateral. But those things were supposed to be redeemed back to them after a certain period of time. But in this society, they don't do that. This is why you have the national debt, and they hold that firm. Now, if they were really people they call themselves, Israelites. Well, they don't call themselves Israelites. They call themselves, the big nosers. Y'all know what I'm talking about. If they were really righteous, they would, every 7 years, they would wipe people's debt out. So there would be no such thing as a national debt. But why do they do this? Because debt leads to slavery. Let me see if I can look up debt slave, see if it'll come up in this offline dictionary. Nope, it's not coming up. Let me see if I put it together. Nope. So let's just look up the word debt for now. Debt, the state of owing something, especially money. Money or goods or services owed by one person to another. An obligation to pay or do something. And this is why they want everybody in that deep debt. And put them in a condition to where you're super in debt now. So in order for you to continue to make any type of money, you got to get this jab. And eventually what that's going to lead to is the chip. So that debt after a period of time will not be able to be paid off. So what would it lead to? Slavery. And then if you look up, if you go to Google and you type in debt slavery, it should send you to Wikipedia. If a brother could do that, that'd be cool. You know, it'll send you to Wikipedia and it'll give you a definition of debt slavery, you know. And if a brother could, they could put that up, you know, just, you don't have to copy the whole thing, just a little portion of it to get the point. So it says slavery, the state of being under the control of another person, the practice of owning slaves, work done under harsh conditions for little or no pay. And that's what they want. They want debt slaves. Now, there's a situation in the scriptures, if I can find it, I'll bring it out. Going back to the time of Egypt. Yeah, I'll read this again. I read that already, but let's read it again. Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. That's right. So I'm going to see if I can find this scripture, because there was a situation that happened in Egypt to where... Oh, wait a minute, brother. I can't read the brother's name. It says peonage, that's where you get the word peon from. Also known as debt slavery or bonded labor. Beautiful. Is the pledge of a person's services as security for the repayment for a debt or the obligation. Another brother put it up. Two brothers put that up. It's beautiful. Where the terms of the repayment are not clearly or reasonably stated. Debt slavery, also called debt servitude, debt bondage, or debt peonage, a state of indebtedness to landowners or merchant employers that limit the authority of producers and provide their own owners of something. Beautiful. That's a good scripture. Haggai 1:6. You have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but you have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. Then it goes on to say from the other brother that put the other definition up, clearly or reasonably stated, and the person who was holding the debt thus has some control over the laborer. Wikipedia, the water, brothers, the water. Really appreciate that. Proverbs 28:8, another brother. He that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. Yeah, because eventually all of those riches are going to be turned to us. That's why, because right now they're proud and boastful in their riches. They're stout-hearted. But the scriptures say that we're going to boast in their riches, in the riches of the heathen. When you go to Isaiah, the 61st chapter. Then when you go to the Apocrypha in Ecclesiasticus, the 10th chapter, the 8th verse, it speaks about them that get these things unjustly, these riches, you know, they're going to be translated from them to us. All right, the brother, I can't really read it's kind of bright out here. I can't really read the brother's names, but I can see the scriptures. So it says, and we don't wear sunglasses out here. Matthew 18:29. And his fellow servants fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. And that's what debt slavery does. Debt slavery causes you to become a slave, because when you go to prison, what are you? You're pretty much a slave. And that's in the Constitution, the 13th Amendment. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall appear in the United States, in so many words, except for criminal activities or something along those lines, because then they can make you a debt slave or a criminal, because if you're charged with a crime, you have to pay your debt. And when you're in that prison house, you're pretty much a slave, you know, to the ones that are holding you captive. And you have to work for them. You have to do things for them. Let's see. Right, brother GMS, your top, I can see it now. Freedom is assumed on debt repayment. That's right, beautiful, beautiful. Somebody put, currently debt bondage is the most common method of enslavement, with an estimated 8.1 million people bonded to labor illegally, as cited by the International Labor Organization in 2005. And these are stats. And that's why it says in Revelation 18 that neither slaves or souls of men shall be here anymore, because once this place goes down, their whole system goes down. It's just like having a main computer, but then you have a whole bunch of different computers out there that are feeding off of that main computer. And if one of those computers go out, hey, everybody else still moves on because the main computer is still operating or functioning. But once that main computer goes down, what happens? All the rest of those computers get shut down. So once America goes down, then everything else, their whole enterprise goes up in flames. Up inside you. Matthew 5:3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's right. And the scriptures say that the Lord chose the poor of this world rich in faith. Duration may be undefined, thus allowing the persons supposedly owed the debt to demand services indefinitely. That's right. Debt bondage can be passed on from generation to generation. Yep. Right, the brother put the scripture, Ecclesiastes 10:8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Beautiful. This is a good one too. Let's see. Let me see. Jeremiah 12:13. They have sown wheat, but they shall reap thorns. Yeah. They have put themselves to pain, but shall not profit. And they shall be ashamed of your revenues because of the fierce anger of the Lord. Woo! Damn. That's heavy. You know, because here it is, Jake is thinking if they work hard, they get 2, 3, 4 jobs, they're not lazy lima beans, that they'll have a better life for themselves. But you don't understand that this society is not based off of, a righteous standard. It's not how much you put into it, is how much you get out. It's what you do for them and how much you comply for them, that will determine where your status will be. And that's not even, and if you're not an Edomite, you're not promised that position. Because just like they did with Gad, once they didn't need the scouts anymore, after they took down their other brothers and sisters, what happened? They were put right in the same reservation camps that they helped put the rest of their people in. That's why it says that they that consent unto them shall be had in derision. Wisdom of Solomon 6:5, horribly and speedily shall he come upon you, for a sharp judgment shall be to them that be in high places. Wow, man. Hey, the water brothers are killing the common boy. So now let me see if I can find that other precept. If any of you brothers out there know exactly where it is in Genesis, the exact place where they came to Joseph and they ran out of money. I don't know exactly what chapter that is, but if I find it, we can read a little bit of that, because that's important to what's going on today, because it gives us an example in the scriptures of debt slavery. And sometimes we be dyslexic in our speech. I'll take this also from me. Let's see. We're getting close. Man, she probably said Jacob. Canaan men of shepherds, Joseph had not obtained place, father and brethren. Joseph. All right, I think I found it. Let's start at Genesis 47:13. Okay, brothers, they put okay. I'll start at the 13th verse. Genesis 47:13. The water, brothers, the water. It says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. And we see this happening right now. with the disruption of the supply chains. Last I heard, you had the docks that were full because nothing was moving out of them, and you had the ships that were pretty much anchored, outside of these ports and harbors because they can't offload because there's no room to put the stuff because the other stuff isn't moving out of there. So that means that the supply chain is breaking down. The merchants of the sea ain't making no money. The people that move those different containers ain't making money. The truckers that ship them ain't making no money. Like that. The supplies that they have for surplus are breaking down, are depleting. Outside of inflation and soon to be hyperinflation, when you have a shortage of something, you have something called supply and demand. Supply and demand causes prices to also soar. Because if you have a shortage of something and a mass amount of people want it, the people that are holding that product are going to be able to sell it a lot more expensive, and people will be willing to pay a higher or a top dollar for it because there's a scarcity in it. And this is what we see happening right now. So this supply chain breakdown on the whole world is going to cause what? Food shortages, which is going to eventually lead to what? Famines. So when we read in Egypt with Joseph, who was a pharaoh, underneath the pharaoh, should I say, he was one of the top men. He was like second in command underneath the pharaoh. The pharaoh had a dream, a series of dreams, 2 dreams, and they both had something to do with fat kine and fat ears of corn, I believe it was, and lean, seven fat and 7 lean of both the kine and the corn. And Joseph gave the pharaoh the interpretation that there were going to be 7 years of plenteous. So in those 7 years of plenteous, gather up all of the goods and a surplus and put it into barns, and then after that, there's going to be a time of 7 years of leanness, which the land wasn't going to produce what it did in the previous 7 years. So what that did was eventually people, after about a year, maybe year and a half or 2 or whatever the case was, their surpluses that they had started to dwindle. So they had to go to Egypt to get, food for them to eat. So it says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. So we're coming into, didn't Yahweh Shai said that there's going to be famines? It says, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine, because there was a shortage of food. See, back then they had to import it in like on whatever camelback or donkey back, or they would use ships to bring stuff to the different ports and everything. But when there was a famine, there was a shortage, right? So it says, and Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they brought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So this is the people of these lands coming to him, bringing them their money to buy food because there was a great famine, right? It says, and when money failed, because they had no more money, in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And we're at the point now where money is failing. Because the money that's failing, or the money that's here, is not really worth anything. But what we're seeing is not just the money failing and being devalued day by day, but a new system being set up into place where everything's going to go digital. That's why you had these digital currencies and different things of that nature. There was another, what was that called? Basic something income, you know, which is everything online. Like back in the days when you got food stamps, you would get the actual paper monopoly money. Then they came out with the EBT card, you know, because everything was slowly but surely being transitioned. UBI, the water, brother, Universal Basic Income. You know, everything was being slowly transitioned. You know, it was, the people's minds were being manipulated to use credit cards because most people don't carry cash at all. You know, that's why when you go to because everything is on the card. Nobody carries. I mean, I carry cash. I'm pretty sure a few other brothers carry cash, but most people don't carry cash because they used to just push in their card. Now they can wave their card or their phone over a particular device. This is all geared to manipulate the minds of the people to bring everything online, because that's how they'll gain major control. Like I went to go make a money order, you know, for my rent, and you know the Eve chick behind the counter, she was getting impatient with me, right? She's like, no, hit it. So I said, all right. And then I went to swipe the card. She said, no, put the chip in. Put the chip in. I said, I don't have a chip. So, oh, okay, swipe it. Because these people's minds are being conditioned, you know, to say chip, to use this credit system. Because everything is going to be brought online. Because once everything is online, there's no way to finagle your way around it. And that way, when you don't comply, they shut you down. You know, that's why it's going to go from lockdown to lockout, as the name of the title of the lesson is. So it goes on to say, so the money faileth, and Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. See? So if your money failed, you got a substance called your cattle, which would be horses or cows or whatever you had, and you can use that for trade. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the trade. You know, you're given some type of substance in order to receive another type of substance, which is called the barter system. This is where you get your barter system from. All right. So it goes on to say, and they brought the cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses. Wow, I didn't realize that it said horses. I didn't remember. It says he gave them bread in exchange bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle, and for the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. See? So they relied on the substance of their cattle once their money failed to bring forth, their cattle to him to be able to receive bread. It says, when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. So what happened? They became so indebted that they had to pretty much sell themselves and their lands over to them. This is why one of the mantras, I guess you could say, for the New World Order is you will own nothing and you will be happy. Why? Because the vision of the future for the masses of the people is total slavery. That's what they want. They want to establish their kingdom upon the earth, predicated upon total obedience and total slaves of the people to the international banking families. That's what they want. Because as somebody asked, I'm not sure if it was Eustace Mullen that said this, or maybe it could have been G. Edward Griffin, or it could have been somebody else. When a man has all the money that they can possibly wish for, what else excites them? And pretty much it's raw control or raw power over the people. That's pretty much what excites them. Raw power over the people. to have total control over somebody. Because when you have total control over someone, it empowers you. You know, let's look up this word empower real quick. It empowers you, and that's why the ultimate definition of blessing or blessed is to have slaves, as you hear Elder Pastor bring out over and over again. So let's look up this word empower. Empower. Give or delegate power or authority to. Give qualities or abilities to. So pretty much give or delegate power or authority to. There's a sentence here. She authorized her assistant to sign the papers. So pretty much give or delegate power or authority to. So someone has total control of your body and soul. You know? But it's true. They have total control over you. And this is all based off of what? A credit-based system. Because at the end of the day, this money that this is why they wanted to establish their final central bank in America. Like Michael Rivero said, all wars are bankers' wars, and he went into the history of these wars. And when you look at the reason why these wars were fought, they'll say this happened and that happened, and this person threw the first shot, and blah, blah, this, that, and the other. But really, when you go back behind the scenes, it was all about banking wars, because the first central bank was established, I believe it was the 1700s. I forgot. You know, it's been a while since I went over that history. And the charter was for 20 years. After 20 years, it was shut down. Something happened. I forget what it was. Then the second central bank was opened up. And I believe it was the Rothschilds told America, look, if you don't renew our charter, which was up in 20 years, you know, we're gonna wage war against you. And what happened? It might have been the king, you know, the king of England at that time, you know. And what happened? They didn't renew the charter, and you had something called the War of 1812, which they say it was for this, that, the other. No, it was because they wouldn't renew the charter. So in 1910, you had something called The Creature of Jekyll Island, which was the name of the book that G. Edward Griffin wrote, based off of the establishment of the Federal Reserve. And there was, I believe it was 7 men, if I'm not mistaken, that went down to it's Jekyll Island, you know, right off of the coast of Georgia somewhere. And they had a meeting on how to establish a third central bank. And they wanted the dude, Nelson Aldrich, which was a senator at the time, I believe. He wanted to establish the Aldrich bill. But Paul Warburg, which was a German, he said that's not a good idea because everybody associates you with business and they're going to shoot it down. And sure enough, they shot it down. So what they did was they went back to the drawing board, and Paul Warburg changed the provisions within the contract, so to speak, and he gave it the title of the Federal Reserve, to imply that it was from the federal government, but it's not. Someone said, it's about as federal as Federal Express. You know, it's a privately owned corporation. And Eustace Bunner said there was like 100 international banking families that owned the stocks to that company. You know, so when they put that in there, they didn't want the Nelson Aldrich and them didn't want those provisions because those provisions didn't work for them. He said, Paul Warburg said, look, the goal is to get the bill passed. Afterwards, you could change the provisions. So they got it passed, and in 1913, because Woodrow Wilson signed it into office, I believe it was December 23, 1913 it might have been, or I believe it was December 23rd, 2 days before so-called Christmas. I believe it was 1913. And then that started the establishment of the Federal Reserve, which is a central bank. And from that point on, they were able to make debts. And this was a central bank that had no charter. See, that was the thing. That's what they wanted to get, because Maya Angelou said, "Give me control of the nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws." That's why in Proverbs 22:7 it says that the servant or the borrower will be servant to the lender, and that's what happens. You have a debt. These debt-bearing notes that are put into the system as the currency or money of America, and it's putting people further and further in debt because that money is not backed by anything. It's just like giving credits. You can never pay a credit with a credit because eventually down the line you're going to have to pay. And this is why when the people's money failed, which they had real money back then, they had to give their cattle. Once the cattle failed, all they had left was what? Themselves, their bodies as slaves, and their land. And this is where we're coming to. And that's why, let's go real quick to the book of Micah, the 2nd chapter. Micah, the 2nd chapter. Because a man, is supposed to be able to have an inheritance, supposed to have land, money, cattle, to be able to pass on to his sons, and their sons, and their sons, and their sons, so on and so forth. But in this society, you can't have that. The international bankers have it, but the majority of people are pretty much nothing but employees, which when you look up the term employee, employer, in the, I believe it was the Barron's Law Dictionary, it says that employer-employee is nothing more than a slave-master and slave relationship. So Micah 2:1, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Yeah, because they hold sway and control over it. And they covet fields. See, they want this particular land that somebody owns, but in order for them to get it from them, they have to do some underhanded shit. So what better way to get that than to put this person in debt? Well, wait a minute, and they start bitching. Oh, this is my land. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but wait a minute, you're in debt. You owe me. If you pay me, you can have the land back. But they know you can't pay them, so there you go. That's why the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, goes around the world to these smaller countries and lends them exorbitant amount of money, which they know they can't pay back, with the clause, that if they can't pay, you're going to have to give up your lands and your resources. Because that's the ultimate riches of that particular country. And it goes on to say, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. See? And that's what it's all about. So when we go back to Egypt, ancient Egypt, that's what was going on. Let's read the 18th verse again. When that year was ended, this is Genesis 47:18. When that year was ended, they came unto him the 2nd year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds, our cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us, and our land for bread, because they were willing to give themselves up as slaves and their land just to be able to eat. Because famine is one of the greatest motivators outside of fear. And you have to think of it this way. The average American in America has no self-discipline. They got to eat now. If they go, and most of them are so fat and lazy, they won't even get out the car to walk into these so-called fast food restaurants, to get their food. They'll go through the drive-thru. And Lord forbid that their meal is a minute late. Then they start getting antsy. What's going on? I gotta get. What's going on with my food? You see big fat tub of lards sliding in through the takeout window because they're too impatient to wait for that nasty ass fast food that's coming. So they can slob it down. So what do you think is going to happen when hunger starts to hit, and that hunger starts turning into famine? For other countries, they know how to go without. Some people sometimes go without food for days. They might only eat 2, 3, 4 times a week, if that. Mostly sustained by just drinking water, and things of that nature. But the average American, oh, come on, man. That's why they're so fat and out of shape. And they don't, and then, I mean, we all guilty of this, wolfing food down, not chewing it properly. But some people inhale the food. They have a cheeseburger, 2 bites, oh, it's gone. It's like, God damn, dog, where'd it go? That's like when a dog eats, that's how they eat, 2 bites and swallow. Because they're so greedy, they want more. So it's gonna get hard out here in these streets, man. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our lands? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. See? And this is where we headed to. And this is why these international bankers, they know exactly what they're doing. Because it's the Most High working on the left-hand side. They know that in order for them to have a perpetual slave, they have to insert the digital oil into them. The digital oil, which is something the Elder Pastor coined. So that digital oil, once that goes in someone, guess what? That's a servant or a servant for life. Because that's what the original physical oil was all about. You bore a man's ear with that, and he was your servant for life. You put that digital oil in people, and they'll be your servant for life. So it says, verse 20, and Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. See, that was a great motivator. It could have been anything else. It could have been not able to get cattle, or not able to get chariots, or not able to get fabric, or not able to get certain particular spices, or not able to get, soaps or oils or incense, frankincense or incense and all of that stuff. And that would have been fine. But what was the main factor? The famine, food. It says, and as for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of the border of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Now, if a brother, Babakusha, if I can find it, I don't have it on my phone. If a brother can look up Executive Order 11,000, that's 11000. If a brother can find that executive order, because there are executive orders out there that are put into power, that are put into the law to be able to take over private vehicles, public transportation. They could take over the food sources. They could take over the energy sources. And there's even one, which I believe is Executive Order 11,000, that allows the government to put citizens into work brigades. Let's see. Executive Order 11,000, assigning emergency preparedness function to the Secretary of Labor. See? Assigning emergency preparedness functions to the Secretary of Labor. Scope. The Secretary of Labor, hereinafter referred to as the Secretary, shall prepare national emergency plans. And see, there's one where they have a whole list of them, but they give like a summary of what it is. Let's see. Develop, covering. Okay, here we go. The Secretary of Labor shall prepare national emergency plans and develop preparedness programs covering civilian manpower mobilization. See? Civilian manpower mobilization. Meaning that they'll be able to take people and put them into work brigades. Those of you brothers that have seen the movie Handmaid's Tale, what would they do? The people that wouldn't comply, they put them in work brigades, pretty much. Work colonies. If a woman was barren, they would put her what? In the labor camps. Because ultimately, the future of the populace of the world, is in the eyes of these international banking families is to be total debt slaves for life. And that's why you watch these different movies like Equilibrium and others. You'll notice that the future people are numb, they're motionless, they're they have no feelings, they're apathetic, they're robotic. And what do they have to do? They had to take a juice shot twice a day. Hey, but you always quoting movies, man. Yeah, but what's in the movies years ago is happening right now, right before your face. So let's go back. Genesis 47:21. And as for the people, he removed them from to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Yeah, because once somebody is a slave, their quarters are wherever you put them at. No longer can they come and go as they please. And that's why they're building these smart cities. Everything online. Like that movie Out of Time with Justin Timberlake. They had the different zones, which was depending on how much money you had, you had more time. So it says, only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. So in other words, he made them slaves. It says, and it shall come to pass in the increase, because this seed that I'm giving you, you're the slaves, whatever increase you get out of that, that you shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. That's why they're going to pretty much serve this devil as if he's the Most High. Like in the movies The Purge, they give all glory and honor to the founding fathers, because they're going to paint themselves as the saviors to these people. And these people are going to be so drugged up, and so in control that they're not going to be able to resist, because they're going to be in a stupefied state of mind. The brother Yashalom from the New York camp just put up a video of a movie that's coming out on an implant, and how this woman is being controlled by that implant. Now most people are like, oh man, you tripping about. This is what they've been doing. But you keep thinking that way. Keep thinking that way until reality hits you right in the face, like a stiff Mike Tyson uppercut. And then when you're flying in the air and about to lay on your ass, you're gonna be like, damn, I should have listened. And it's coming, and they've been painting. We've been saying it. It's been all type of information coming out on it. But what do you get? Conspiracy theories. Now there's a meme out there that said how you got it's like kind of a joke, because you got the shortage of foods and shortage of supplies. There's a meme that says there's a shortage of conspiracy theories, seeing that all of them are coming to pass. And I got a good laugh out of that one, because it's true. All right, so let's see what else we got here. And Joseph made a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part. See? So they were indebted to the Pharaoh for life, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. All right, so pretty much that's the point. So that's where you get your debt slaves from. This is why the Federal Reserve System, or the Federal Reserve, was put into place as a disguise of a governmental agency, but it was nothing more than a central bank where they centralized everything. And you have to understand how money works. The more dollars you print and put into the economic soup, the more watery the soup gets, to where the point where there's no taste to it. So what does that mean? It's useless. And that's what's happening. Because they're only supposed to have a certain amount of money or a certain amount of these dollars in circulation based off of the reserve of gold and silver. That's why in the ancient, not the ancient world, but in the past, they had silver and gold certificates, which they don't have anymore. I happen to have one in my possession, a dollar silver certificate. You know, you could type that in Google and go to images, and you'll see the silver and gold certificates. $1, $5, $10, whatever, 50, so on and so forth. You know, so this is what they're doing. They're conditioning the minds of the people to go digital. That's why everybody, oh, cryptocurrency, let's go to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and this coin and that coin, and, you know, Dogecoin and this, that, and other. Oh, you're getting a good turnover. But I never agreed with that, because those are just computer entries. What better thing to have to increase, you know, your finances than to have it tangibly in your hands? How many people you know that actually have Bitcoin in their hands, in their pockets, at home? You don't see that. So at any moment they could hit a button and, oh, everybody lost everything. But that was all a hype. Because remember, they work on both sides. They have something called controlled opposition. I don't know if that's going to come up here, but let's look that up. You know, and that controlled opposition is given both sides of the coin. Because remember, they want to control both sides. I don't think it's going to come up. Nope. Let's look up controlled. Well, they got controlled substance, a drug or chemical substance now, but that's not what we're looking for. Let's look up controlled. Or let's just look up control, since you want to be fresh. Power to direct or determine a relation of constraint of one entity. Pretty much power to direct or determine. Now let's look up the word opposition. Opposition. The action of opposing something. So let's look up opposing. I hate when they do that. Opposing. Or let's look up oppose. Oppose. Be against. Express opposition to. So controlled opposition is someone that is like an opposing factor in an argument or disagreement, but they're controlled by the same side that they're speaking against. And that's all it is. You know? So, you know, I think that's a good time to end it. You know, from lockdowns to lockouts. And to water to you brothers, man, for putting all those beautiful precepts and helping me out with the definition and the certain definitions and certain information that y'all put out for me on there, you know, through the spirit. Of course, not for me, through the spirit, you know, to keep the lesson fired up and going. You know, so with that, you know, I pray that you brothers have been edified and you few sisters. And to the next time I say shalom. Stay strong.